It's Two on the Aisle with me, Charles Grouse. Tonight, Leslie Hoban Blake joins me for reviews of Mrs. Warren's Profession, Brief Encounter, and Avenue Q. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Two on the Aisle.
But Brief Encounter was a brief play. This is a full evening of theater. Brief Encounter was less than a 90-minute play. It was a one-act play, and a short one at that, made into a full-length film. Right. And a lovely film, and there's so many people who still remember the film. I mean, it's shown on TCM all the time. And a lot of people approach this going, I love the movie, I don't want to have anybody spoil it. And what's done here, this is a lovely company that came in from London, comes in actually from Cornwall, and it's called the Knee-High Theatre Company, and it's won all kinds of awards with, this is not the first time that they've gone to a film and, in a sense, deconstructed it. This is not Brief Encounter. This uses Brief Encounter to... As a starting point. As a starting point to do something entirely... So kind of like 39 Steps. Well, no, that 39 Steps is exactly shot for shot the Hitchcock movie. Oh, yes.
Because the comic angles.
But it goes for comic as opposed to the other. No, this is not the movie at all. It uses scenes from the movie, but then it does all sorts of other interpretive things.
So it's adapted to the stage. It makes itself a unique stage.
But it's more than that. It uses it as a jumping off point, as Emma Rice, the director, says, to talk about the idea of falling in love at first sight. What does it mean? And there are images of the woman and the man will stand looking at each other, and then they suddenly fall backwards into the arms of somebody who's standing behind waiting for them, which is a lovely trust exercise that people do. But they literally fall several times to show what falling in love is. And there are all kinds of musical numbers which have nothing to do with the movie, but are all Noel Coward music. So that's interpolated into it as well. And there are puppets, and there are movie scenes.
Yes, and that, let me just...
Projections,
for anybody who doesn't watch TCM, very quickly, this is a show about two married people who accidentally run into each other in a train station in England, and then keep running into each other, but ultimately not by accident. And there is a romance, it's never consummated, which I find in this day, it's kind of quaint in this day and age, but it also strengthens the show. The fact that they're concentrating on the romantic, on the interpersonal here. I mean, if this was the average TV program, they'd have been in bed like 5 minutes after.
Oh, sure.
But here you see the relationship growing, and they're aware of the consequences.
Well, not only that, you get a scene.
Not just love at first sight. It's it's a growing romance, and they flesh it out, which is nice, and I think ultimately makes a much stronger story. You mentioned some of the things that they do. I have to admire the staging of this show. I mean, just the different ways she has a train leaving the station throughout the show. But there are times, like you mentioned, the projections in the back, and they interact with them. That gets very campy at times.
Well, there are campy parts to it,
yeah,
obviously.
I didn't, but that part didn't work. It's like, well, what direction is she trying to take the show?
For you, it didn't work. I think what she's doing, and it's very postmodern, I think what she's doing is everything. Everything that comes in, she's throwing the kitchen, everything plus the kitchen sink. And for me, almost all of it worked. I must say before I finish that this came last year to St. Ann's Warehouse in Brooklyn, where I did not see it. I have difficulty getting to St. Ann's Warehouse, which other people don't. And so to bring it to Broadway, to bring it to Studio 54, which the Roundabout did, and both of these plays are from the Roundabout, both Mrs. Warren and Brief Encounter are from Roundabout. To bring it to the Studio 54 was really quite astounding. I mean, to expect people to, it's very avant-garde theater, it is. It puts, even though it's not an avant-garde play, what they've done with it is an avant-garde kind of approach to this material. They make fun of it at the same time that they're showing it. Right. They have an onstage band. They have people being very campy in their, not just that scene.
Well, there are supporting characters, and they have their own little stories, and that can get a little campy. I view that as more comic relief.
Well, I view all of that as comic relief. I mean, campy is.
But the problem was, to me, it got in the way of the romance. You have a very serious subject here, and to have them all of a sudden just like weaving in and out, with the waves.
But there's more than one.
It looked like it was a spoof at times, and it kind of hurt the it hurt the illusion. I said, wait, where is she trying to go with this? Because I don't think she's doing a spoof.
Well, she writes a page and a half in the program to tell you where she's going with it. So that's part of what I read
I shouldn't
that.
have to read
You're
that.
right. You're absolutely right. But I realized what it was she was doing, and it's something that she and her company have done many times. They like to take old material and see what it means to a contemporary audience, and sometimes old material is difficult to leave alone for you sometimes don't trust that a new audience is going to take to it. That's number one. Number two, Noel Coward is, as George Bernard Shaw is kind of like a saint to the British audience. So this was done for a British audience. The fact that Americans like it, and Ben Brantley went just over the moon for this, not only when it was at St. Anne's, but when it was in London, and again when it was at Studio 54. So we have somebody out there who's just a champion of this play. My sister hated it. She's a real fan of the movie and just thought that they were screwing around with it.
What about the actors?
I thought the actors were lovely. The two actors, we don't know any of these people. They're from this little company in Cornwall. Well, Hannah Yelland and Tristan Sturrock, is that a name for a leading man? Tristan Sturrock.
There we go.
And he looks like that kind of leading man. He just looks like a Tristan.
He's basically, they're both, he's a very nice, very gentle person. He's a physician.
He's a doctor, right.
She's a housewife. We see her family. We never see his.
Exactly.
On that, which is interesting because after meeting her husband, you kind of get the idea why she's looking for.
You think, but he's a lovely man. But he's a little pot-bellied and he's a little bald and he's not the
as
handsome.
Opposed to the handsome doctor.
Exactly. And she's a lovely-looking woman, by the way. She's very beautiful.
She is, and it doesn't. But she's very straight-laced. I think.
Okay, I don't know.
The way she carries herself, the way she behaves. Obviously,
but she's staying in the 1930s, which is when this takes place.
Yes.
So she's, it's not as if. See,
I didn't say that was inappropriate.
No, but I mean that's what's hard
for
us to look at it sometimes. I think is because
that's how she is.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy myself, but ultimately, to me, the play was like their relationship. Doesn't go all the way.
Oh, that's a good line. I like that.
So I enjoyed the play, but I didn't quite get out of it what I
Did you see a matinee or an evening?
I saw an evening.
Okay, I don't know if they did this in the evening, but at the matinee, because they had the time in between, they had the band in the lobby.
At the end of the show, they have the band. Yes, it's wonderful.
They stayed for 15 minutes.
They're playing songs, and you know what? Some of them aren't Noel Coward.
No, it was all not. No, it was all contemporary rock kind of music.
On these not so contemporary instruments, it's
one guy plays the spoons.
Yes. And pretty much the whole cast is there at one point or another. They don't all play instruments. But it's wonderful. It's a lovely bonus. Definitely worth staying around for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.